Oh wait, I forgot. Oh no, moment forever. Got it. Hello. So I'm trying to. I don't know. The top down angle was getting a little tired. So I wanted to switch it up, and I can't do it if I set the camera like at the base, which is almost at eye level. It's slightly below, and I didn't want to look down either. So I have the tripod rather than the free floating camera. I have the one attached to the tripod. Um, and just set up here. Like behind my monitor, right in front of the window, but off to the side a little bit. So, and then like this much of the screen is monitor. So I had to like zoom in to clip out the white block. That's the back of the screen. And I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable. Off to the side. Whew, I'm back in my fourth of the screen. But yeah, I'm gonna use the Mausolea Oracle of Souls. I might read the book to do the thing that I've been doing lately, which is the aspect challenge and advice. So, excuse me. All right, aspect challenge and advice, please. Aspect challenge and advice, please. It feels like it's very early in the morning. Early in the morning, early in the morning, early, 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 early in the morning, early in the morning, early in the morning. All right. So somebody flipped over, two other cards slid out, and then they flipped back over. So I don't know who flipped over and then back over, but I got two cards out. And I don't know if they're both the aspect of today or if one is the aspect and the other is the challenge. I think it's going to be dual aspected today. So we have Anubis and El Shaddai. Anubis, arbiter of truth, El Shaddai, the radiant Lord. Anubis is preservation, neutrality, and obligation. El Shaddai is wisdom, paternalism, and kindness. They might not be like too different. It may be a single aspect. This is interesting. Anubis has scales, right? Mott scales belong to Anubis, apparently. As far as I know, which in my knowing may be incorrect because it's definitely incomplete, they're the scales of Anubis. And then the heart is weighed against the feather. If the heart is lighter than the feather, then good things. If it's heavier, then I think there's like an alligator monster that eats you. Um, but it's like Anubis has weighed the heart and it's lighter than the feather, and then this El Shaddai energy comes through. The radiant Lord. Wisdom, paternalism, and kindness. And it's interesting that it moves from neutrality to kindness. Because neutrality feels like it doesn't interfere. It's not kind or unkind, it's just there. And sometimes, especially if we're in a time of need, neutrality can seem like unkindness. Or if there is like a question, like a moral, ethical question, the neutrality can be less neutral, question mark, potentially. It's almost like that. Sometimes not picking a side is picking a side. Not making a choice is a choice. All right, what is the challenge when it comes to Anubis and El Shaddai? I want to replay El Shaddai Ascension of the Metatron. I think it's on PlayStation now. I'm pretty sure I still have my PlayStation 3. It's in a tote. I might hook it up. I might play it. I don't know if that game is one of the ones that got like ported. No, because that was from the 3. That wasn't even from the 4. We're already on the 5. All right. What is the challenge besides living? The challenge, I'll give it 3 more. If nothing comes out, we'll adjust. 2, 1, and 0. Okay, because the challenge is so almost inherent because of who came out. I'm going to adjust this today. So we'll do what is approaching with this El Shaddai, because it is wisdom. Lilith and Golden Empress are at the cut. What's approaching, and then what'll help us with that. So what is approaching after this El Shaddai? Like, what is the arena through which this wisdom? Honestly, I'll give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nothing came out. Bottom of the deck is the maestro. I was gonna say bottom of the deck is the maestro, the teacher. I am not that bilingual or trilingual or even bilingual to be trilingual. The maestro, master of inspiration, understanding, community, and ingenuity. Oh, this is interesting. You see that? Anubis holds 1, the maestro holds 4. Oops, and now the maestro is on the table and Anubis is at the bottom of the deck. So each of these may be related to a different aspect of wisdom. It's the maestro that puts it all together. And so I guess the first, not the first as if it's first chronologically, but the only one mentioned by card today is this one where we understand the difference. We understand, is that the word? I think it is. Hey, Google. Hold on, let me turn up the volume because Google been quiet. Oof. Google been quiet. To the point where I ask Google, I'll be laying in bed and I'll be like, what time is it? And I can't even hear Google. So then I gotta like get up or reach for my phone and I'm like, oh. How is it the system voice? Maybe. Yeah, because the system voice was low. What was I gonna ask Google? Hey Google, define deference.
Here's the definition of deference. humble submission and respect.
Yeah, that's not the word I was. That's not the word I was looking for. Thoughtfulness, attention, attentiveness, consideration. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, that was the word I was looking for, but not in the way that I thought I was looking for it. Because I was looking for a word, it's like difference, but there's a little bit more deference in the difference. Um, but it's like the difference, it's understanding the contextualization of neutrality. When neutrality is a true neutrality, and when neutrality is that energy of not choosing a side is choosing a side, not picking is picking, and how, depending on the situation and circumstance, and because it's Anubis and Anubis' scale has to do with the heart and the lightness of the heart, sometimes neutrality can make a heart either lighter or heavier. I think a lot of times I've contextually heard neutrality as affecting something, it's negative. That's like silence is compliance type of, like, if there's something wrong going on and you don't say anything, then you're not part of the solution. You become part of the problem. Or at least you're not part of the change. You know what I mean? And then, because again, we go from that neutrality to this kindness, and then we go from kindness to community. As I block the word community. So it's moving from that neutrality to a true community. But um, I'm going to pull before and after the keeper in the SKT, because this was giving me keeper energy. It's basically like, you've passed the test, you've ascended the mortal coil, or you've done it in some way that you don't encounter the same challenge. You don't interact with challenge the same way, or something like that. It's giving me keeper energy from the SKT. The keeper is the fool that's made it all the way from the magician to the world, who has taken on what they need. I'm keep looking up here because that's where the camera usually is. The keeper is the fool that has made it from the magician to the world, who has learned at every step and who has taken on what they need to take on. So now that when they engage and interact with the world, they do it in a completely different way. And this is feeling like keeper territory, which is why it's like there is no, it's almost like there is no guidance past this direction. It's like, because now you're an adult. The keeper is the adult, the initiate is the child, and the seeker is the adolescent. And the parent's relationship with the child, the adolescent, and the adult are all different. The adult makes their own choices and their own decisions, and they forge their own paths without so much reliance upon the parent to tell them what to do, or without relying upon a general flow of society to guide them in the next step, right? And so that's why it's like there is no challenge or advice. There is no what energy is coming, because it's like, well, whatever is coming is wherever you go and whatever you decide. You are the master of your own life, and you make those choices and decisions. And then the added Patrick is like, you're responsible for those repercussions and consequences to your choices and decisions. But consequence isn't always bad. Consequence is the effect to an action. All right, one more. A few cards flipped over, but that's not what we're doing today. We'll do one more. I'm going to look before and after the keeper. The Vagabond, Five of Pentacles, Archangel Commander, and the Shining Quarry are the bottom three cards. See, this is the one that creates, it's very like be the change you wish to see in the world type of energy. And then there's the New World Order. So literally, this energy experienced the Five of Pentacles being outside. they gathered their strength and their courage and they put their mind, they worked with the mind instead of against the mind. They put their thoughts and things to get used to slowly move things forward to the point where it changes the whole world with that new world order. And it's a world order that isn't so this. But again, that's part of that. It feels like this is like the, this is where that kindness and that wisdom comes in. And this is like the application of that kindness and wisdom that builds towards community. Because in the world of community, there is no one that's left outside. And in that world, things are a lot quicker, a lot faster, a lot, more, whatever, a lot less. And then the Two of Cups is immediately behind that, followed by the Queen of Cups, followed by the Page of Swords. And the Page of Swords feels like this is like when you make it to the Two of Cups, Queen of Cups point, that is the physical manifestation of what this Archangel Commander set out to do from this Five of Pentacles. Like that's when, that's like, oh, it's been realized, it's fully realized. All right, Seeker. Where are you? Seeker. Looking for you, Seeker. There was the erudite. I should have known that you'd be here where you are. Because that's literally, so the Archangel Commander with everything I literally just talked about, that's the Emperor before this Keeper. The Emperor is the one who takes charge. The Emperor is the one who sets things into motion actively. The Empress is the one that sets things into motion semi-actively. And I say semi-active because the actions, like the Empress is also like an energy of action, but it's an energy of action that lines up a reception. You know what I mean? Like an Empress action would be like social networking and stuff like that, not because she's like a woman, but because it's the social network that sets one up to receive all of the things that the Empress is attributed to with like manifestation and reception and stuff like that. It's through like her connections and through her energy and through people's love for her that they willingly do things for her. You know what I mean? And it's the Emperor that's the one that goes out and actually does the thing. So they're both active because relationship building is active. That's not a passive thing. They take at least to set up and to start before they sort of run themselves and manage themselves. It takes getting to know somebody. So here is the Keeper that is going out and again, like the Keeper has made it from the Magician to the world. It's been through every card in between. So it has this ability to look at the bigger picture, but also it has this ability to be in the moment and to hold presence and to not neglect one's local for the sake of the global, and to not neglect the global for the sake of the local. It's very like nodal axis Gemini Sagittarius, like North Node Gemini, South Node Sagittarius could be focused more on local. North Node Sagittarius, South Node Gemini could be focused more on like the bigger picture and people in other lands and stuff like that. Because Gemini can hold that like local travel, local community, siblings, and then Sagittarius holds that like global, or like, far distance travel, cultural difference and stuff like that. But the Keeper is able to do both. And all of its intricacies, it's able to be as close as the sun when it needs to be, and as far as the star and this moon in between, and justice and strength and the Hermit. It knows how to almost like Empress Wheels of Fortune, if that makes sense. Because I was just talking about everything that the Empress does to like receive and to set up those networks. And then I guess it also knows how to emperor a wheel of fortune to change. But yeah, it's a lot more active. It's not as passive in this. And that in and of itself is part of the journey of mastery for this keeper. Because this is like it's putting all of that knowledge, putting all of that information to use, and it's through the application of wisdom. It's like it's through the application of knowledge that one gains wisdom, and it's through the expansion of wisdom that one gains mastery. And this card is literally about gaining mastery. It's working on the seventh pentacle, working on the seventh labor. And then the next one is this living wand. It's connected to like the whole world and it's very organic. So it's not like parasitic in any way. It doesn't neglect the balance and it doesn't disrupt it, but it can. Again, it's like this wheel of fortune, it's this change, but the earth is constantly changing, evolving, and turning over. You know what I mean? So it's like it changes the balance. I don't know if it changes the balance. I don't know if like the balance is maintained even while things progress, but it changes something. And then that plays on these scales of Anubis too, because it's almost like the scales of Anubis weigh oneself. And then it weighs like against the world. Because it makes me think of that, like what's heavier, a ton of feathers or a ton of bricks? And then, the trick is you go, oh, a ton of bricks because a brick is heavier than a feather. And it's like, no, they weigh the same. A ton of feathers weighs the same as a ton of bricks, and they both weigh a ton. 5 pounds of feather weighs the same as 5 pounds of brick, weighs the same as 5 pounds of muscle, weighs the same as 5 pounds of fat, weighs the same as 5 pounds of water, weighs the same as 5 pounds of anything. The metric is in the definition, I guess. But the thing here is that it takes many, 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 many feathers to equal the weight of those bricks. It takes a lot more feather than it does brick. And again, like that's where community comes into play. Because if your heart is lighter than a feather and you're trying to move bricks or you're trying to build with like brick and cement and concrete or anything that's not straw, then you're going to need a lot of them. I don't know if there's necessarily any egocentrism here. It doesn't like, I only get that when I like mentioned it takes many, many, many feathers, and for all of those feathers to be cohesive enough to not blow away when you try to put them on the scale to weigh them against the brick. It's like there needs to be something that sort of like keeps them in place, because a feather will, at the slightest whatever, it'll just flutter away. But there needs to be, again, it's community. It's kindness, it's neutrality to kindness to community. And just as that is the shifting and swaying or whatever, just as that is a shift, that also mirrors the shift or like the parallelism of your heart versus the feather and like, the fate of humanity. Are we going to go towards atomic destruction? Or are we going to go towards, you can't even see my hand over here. Non-atomic destruction isn't even on the, it's not even on the thing. But that makes sense. That's why the keeper has to emperor this. And it makes me think of that high priestess yesterday that came out, that was spirit, that's like, do you not think we know what the state of the world is? Do you not think that the divine doesn't know what it's like to be born on earth and to have ancestors and to be raised in certain environments and to experience certain things. Is it nature? Is it nurture? Does it matter? Because you're the one who's, you know, especially when we proclaim ourselves to be such a thing. You know what I mean? But then we find every excuse in the book, and it's like, all of that is very much so, like, all of that is the Five of Pentacles. But then that's supposed to King of Swords, and maybe the King of Swords is this El Shaddai. Well, it's like it's very close to the El Shaddai part of this Anubis El Shaddai. Um, but that King of Swords is the one that's like, you know, things should be different, things should be better. And then that Knight of Pentacles was that, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make it so. It's not, I'm going to ignore and seek out an oasis in the middle of this desert paradise in the middle of hell, and I'm going to camp out there. It's to change things. And maybe the weighing of the heart against the feather, that plays into that, like, the allure of opportunity and of power. How they say opportunity makes a thief and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's like, when you get these things that you desire and when you get what you want, is your heart still set on making everything better for everyone? Or does it get self-satiated with that Nine of Cups energy that came on the before? And it's like, oh, well, I got everything that I want and I love my life, so the rest of the world is no bother to me. It's of no moment to me. And again, that becomes that Chariot in the before, where it's like there's no real movement. Because as soon as we hitch the chariot up and get behind the reins, we just stall because we like where we are now. It's like, oh, no, nothing needs to change. Everything is good now. And it's like the overall picture, the overall state is still the same. And I think that's something that for the longest of times, it's like, of course it plagues us because we're people. Our first thought is to self, and our second thought is to family, or you can reverse those. The first thought is to family, and the second thought is to self, and then the rest of the world is very, very low on the totem pole. And even if the rest of the world is third on that list of self and then family and then the world, or family and then self and then the world, there's so much that's constantly going on in life that one seldom ever gets past self and the family. Because, you know, like, think of how many billionaires and millionaires and people with obscene amounts of money there are who make like limited impacts to benefit everyone else or to contribute towards moving the world and making a world that is more equitable, fair, and just overall progressive, but not necessarily progressive in a political way, but progressive in a way where we don't have dependence and reliance upon things that we don't need to. Like old fossil fuel because of the petroleum industry or whatever, where we can have more renewable resources, where we can afford to like have medicines that don't sell other medicines and stuff like that, where we don't have to make a choice between this thing that's not great and that thing that isn't great, because the people with the power and with the ability to impact and affect change decide not to, because now that hurts the bottom dollar of one of their new rich friends or whatever. Bread of Life, Ace of Pentacles, Sacred Cinnabar, Ace of Swords. Ooh, ooh. And then the Demiurge is here, which is the Four of Wands. This is an alignment of thought, and it's an alignment of thought and word, and an implied alignment with action to create a world so that something physical is seen in a way that matches what the thought is. It's like the person who knows how to do the thing, so they actually do it, versus the person who like thinks that they know, so they do a bunch of stuff and it still doesn't work out. The Demiurge is the one whose thought becomes reality, who has that ability to impact their own life. because it's a demiurge, I don't know anything about demiurges, but I Googled it one day because I was hearing people talk about like they're evil or whatever. The demiurge is the one that has the ability to do it on a greater scale, so they can affect more than just their lives. And because people are so deeply unsatisfied with their own life, sometimes they blame others for the state of their life rather than taking control of the things that they can and making that progressive movement. Sometimes, since it's not fast enough, pinnacles are slow. Since it's not fast enough, since it's not quick enough, since working on this one is too hard, they find someone else to blame and they use some get rich quick scheme to substitute for hard work or to substitute for actual whatever they need to get what they want. And then when that doesn't work, oh, I was lied to in this way and blah, 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 blah. And at no point is there any real agency taken, you know? And like talks of like, you are this, like, you're a god and you are this sovereign and you are this very, very capable manifester. You see it literally everywhere. But again, it's like when it comes to certain things, either there's this, like, we can't do anything about this, we can't change this, or there's this, like, not doing what is for us to actually do because we're trying to find something else, again, to substitute what we need for what we want. It's almost like if you could incorporate a nutrient into your diet by eating food, it's better to eat the food than it is to take the supplement. Because with the food, your body is used to digesting and breaking down and like integrating the things that it takes from that. But with supplements, it comes in such a way that the body isn't necessarily like, oh, this is what I've been digesting. This is what, bodies have grown to digesting over the course of however many years. And so it's like we know how much they pack into the nutrient to give you whatever the dosage is, but you don't necessarily know how effective the body is at taking it up. Because it could come in a form that the body isn't, and then it goes right out. And then you might think that you're putting all this in your body, but your body isn't taking anything up. The best course of action sometimes is direct. And the better course of action sometimes indirect. And the even better course of action sometimes is no action. It's the keeper who knows when to apply what in what situation. I was going to say it is their mastery, but their mastery is something that's still being honed with that Eight of Pentacles. It is their knowledge that is becoming wisdom that will turn into mastery. When do you do what? When is it hands-on? When is it hands-off? When does it move? When does it stay? When does it work through this? Because there's something gorgeous and something beautiful and something that is very much so desired on the other side of challenge. And when does it walk away because it's not worth it? Because this isn't it. And you knew that, and this is your sign. Like, life is so vast and we are so different that there is no one solution to every challenge or problem or issue, unless that solution is listen to your intuition and discernment, because your intuition and discernment will tell you what to do in what situation. The intuition and discernment is great for a case-by-case basis. But when we when we get accustomed to patterns of like, my intuition says this here and my discernment says that there, and it's been consistent to the point where we rely on the pattern, where we rely on that consistency more so than actively engaging our intuition and discernment every single time. Because sometimes something is different. Sometimes it's that opportunity that we've been waiting for, but it requires something from us to get it. Because it requires us to see ourselves as capable or to whatever we need to do to be there. And it's not that you aren't good enough, but it's maturation from a child to an adolescent to an adult. The card that came out when I was shuffling is the Six of Pentacles, the Giver, which is all about reciprocity, which is, again, that you get what you give. Bottom of the deck is the Archangel of Glory, Angel of Art and Grace. the angel of art and grace, when it comes to you get what you give, and then there's the chariot behind it. When it comes to that, it's doing it in a way that is beneficial or doing it in a way that speaks well, right? When I was talking about the Empress and how she receives, it's because of people's love for her. It's because of what she does for others that people then do for her. It's not because she's out there demanding and forcing or whatever, because then her head will roll like some of them other ones. But that's just like, that's not her energy either. Not in truth. Or at least not always, because the Empress can do what the Empress needs to do at the same time. And she's still the Empress. She don't become the Emperor to do it. But when it comes to this is freely given, freely received. There's nothing forcing either one of these hands. This isn't taxes, right? This isn't the Emperor or the Empress levying tax on the people. These are gifts that are freely received. And again, the Archangel of Glory, the one of art and grace, is to do so in a way that moves things forward, that sows joy. And again, it's very Archangel of Scorpio. It is a time for action because words will not move, followed by that belonging in the whispers of Lord Ganesha, doing it in a way that supports and grows community. It's not being that awful boss that nobody wants to work for, so you can't keep anybody hired and then you eventually go out of business. Behind the Archangel of Glory is the Sun, which is the warrior. She does it gladly and happily. She's not forced. She's too aware of her own self-worth. Her self-esteem is too high to be forced into doing something for somebody. And she's not going to compromise in a way that somebody else might compromise either. And that's what keeps all of these feathers like working together and on one accord as they face bricks. It's not one feather being like, okay, now I'm the boss of all you other feathers, and this is the way to do whatever. I mean, you'll get a few feathers that stick on the thing. Some of them won't blow off, some of them will. It's not for me to say either. I'm just a feather too. If I'm either, I could be a little wisp on a feather. But also there are things that are heavier than feathers too, that you can sit on a scale opposite bricks. The Eternal Servitor is the last card from the Mausolea, and it's the Ancient Wanderer. It's hope and completeness and yearning. So this little orb thingy is more of a yellow. The other ones were blue. And the color speaks to, it's making me think of another reaction. Nyx, Enchantress of Night, Secrets, Vigilance, and Subterfuge is at the bottom of the deck. This Eternal Servitor, this Ancient Wanderer, it's like they have what they needed, but they're missing some key ingredient, it's like there's some key reaction that turns this from a yellow into a blue. And until that happens, it's this constant state of yearning because of that feeling of incompleteness. There are a lot of things, whenever someone gets something that we don't have, that we desire, and if we desire and we yearn for so, especially because we think it will bring us some completeness or some happiness or whatever that we're lacking, to feel so desirous of whatever. Like there's a difference between yearning and desire. Like desire is like, I want that. Yearning is like, basically it's like I want it so bad that I need it. There's something that is deeply unsettled within me without that. And it's like, if you think you need more money to be happy, well, there are people with loads and loads and loads of money who are not happy. Will you have some problems that are solved with money? Sure. But like they say, more money, more problems. And the more problems might be, I have all the money, but I still don't feel happy. I have the thing that I thought would make me feel whatever, but I still don't feel whatever. What else is there? And then it becomes this insatiable, it is almost like that ancient wanderer. It's just seeking in anything and everything that fulfillment, and it's not finding it anywhere. There's some key thing that stops that realization. But in our own lives, of course, like if you're watching this and if this resonates for you, then you're turning knowledge into wisdom and gaining a sense of mastery by being more kind and creating communities out of kindness rather than communities out of otherness, which is almost a trauma bond in its own way. We experience similar traumas. We have similar hurts and woes and aches and pains. Let us be friends. And that's the basis for that community. More than love, more than anything else. And that's why they can be almost as fickle as any other sometimes. Because then we have to combat our own insecurities and we have to combat our own egos and shadows and stuff like that. And just like anybody else, just like any other community, just like any other relationship, it's not automatically whatever. And even if you think it might be just because, oh, that person's like spiritual too, but you know, spirituality and religion isn't necessarily the cure for that yearning. It's a pathway to satisfaction. It's a pathway to completeness. But it, in and of itself, and its methods and methodologies, and its instruments and instrumentation and tools and things like that, none of that is a substitute for completeness either. But we think if we do enough of it and if we get it regularly enough, then we'll be complete. But it again, it's like it does something on the inside where that heart is that makes it light enough. That gets one to realize, oh, like I don't need all of these things that I thought I need. I'm happy where I am. And there are so many people who would be like, there are people with nothing that are more happy and more complete and more satisfied and more kind and more loving and more generous than people with nearly everything. Anyway, so that was today. I'm looking at the Enchanted Map Oracle. It wouldn't make sense to pull one because I feel like that would just open up a whole nother whatever. And again, I don't. It was the territory of the keeper. The territory of the keeper is how we show up in our own lives and how we use all of the tools that we've grown to use and how we build and impact and influence and all that other stuff through the space of action. And I know the Emperor came out and the focus is on like having a presence, making a stand because we're moving from neutrality to kindness to community. And that kindness to community, that is also whatever was at the bottom of the deck of the SKT. That had the sun behind it. That's the kind of world that people actually want to live in. We're nice and we're kind to one another. And if you need something, then somebody is there to help out. And it's not, well, I didn't get any handouts and I had it rough and back in my day, it was blah, blah, blah. You have it so easy. You should struggle more. And it's like, so you're literally saying that you don't want actual progress. You don't want the world to move forward. You want it to stand still because it was however still it was for you. Even people with kids. Because, you would think that like, oh, for my family, for my people, I want them to have it better than I had it. And sometimes there is that sentimentality, and sometimes for some people, when their kids and their family get better, then they get triggered, and it's like, whoa, now you think you're blah blah blah, and it's like, well, is this literally not the reason why you paved the path that you did, why you made opportunity for me so that I could do better? And then, they give back, hopefully, to sort of like balance that out and to move everything forward rather than it creating this sever and then there's like the before and then the after or whatever. But it's, again, it's one of those things where the human, it's easiest to say ego, but it goes deeper than that. And even if it's not family, even if it's friends, and you want your friends to be successful, but when they become more successful than you, then there's this thing within you that you have to face and address. That's all of that insecurity and all of that ego that can tear even the most whatever of communities apart. Because at the end of the day, we still have to face ourselves. And that's what the work and everything is supposed to be building up. But I think it's almost like sometimes we build these houses, we build these mansions, we build these bodies and these preferred archetypal, that's who I want to be, but we never move in. We just keep building it and building it and building it, and we'll look at it. And maybe like we'll go and stay for like a night or a few nights, and then we're like, I don't know, it's not ready yet, it needs more work. It's like, you move in. If it's live in ready, you can move in and then you do the work on this wing and then that wing, and you section off the parts that need to be sectioned off while they're under construction. But for the most part, it's very live-inable. And it's not until you move in, it's not until you live in that you recognize some of those things. And that's what the Eight of Pentacles was with the Emperor and the Keeper. Once you move in, once you start doing it, that's when you fine tune it, that's when you tweak it, because it's not going to be perfect before you get there. Because as much of everything as you have considered, there's still going to be something that until you have the experience of it, you're just not going to know, because theory doesn't always match reality. And the world is seldom ideal. And again, that's that Gemini Sagittarius mode. Sagittarius is what it should be, theoretically, what, with all of the knowledge and with all the observation and stuff like that, this is what it is. Gemini is the one that is in it, that is living it. Gemini is the one that's like, I know that you told me this should be working, but it is not working. And I am trying to use it right now, and I'm telling you it's not working. And Sagittarius is like, oh, well, no, like, you're just not doing it right. You should do this and do that and do the other thing. And Gemini is like, I have done that. And if you would listen to me, you would know that. But then Sagittarius is like, well, like, did you do this one thing? And then Gemini is like, oh, no, I didn't do that one. It's not going to work anyway. But then they try it and it works, and it's like, okay. And the reason why it went that way is because it's not one side is always right and the other side is always wrong. They work together. It's the application of both the theory and the practical. Like, that's what makes us human. That's what incorporates our ability to think, rationalize, and analyze, and all kinds of other stuff. It's not to completely forsake one for the other. Because sometimes when you're so far into it, you don't have enough perspective to notice the one thing that is missing or the one thing that is being consistently overlooked. And it's the observer, it's the one with the higher level of utilizing perception. Well, it's the one with perception from the higher place. Because sometimes from a higher vantage point, things sort of like flatten out or they look a lot closer than they actually are. But when you're on the ground, you're like, oh, like that's a considerable difference, right? It's like if I do this, like, oh my gosh, this box is bigger than my head. If you're Gemini, you're like, no, it's not. It isn't. And it's not because my head is gigantic. It's that. And there's this, and that came out yesterday. a little bit too. That was the Six of Pentacles in the after with the Queen of Swords and the Two of Pentacles. And it was balancing both that higher and that in it. And not, because like when you're in it, you're really in it. And when you're not, you're really not. So it's easy from the outside to be like, oh, do this, that, and the other thing. And when you're inside, it's easy to feel like either you don't have any ability to influence or impact anything, or if you're inside of it, it's like you feel like you know everything because you're doing it. Anyway, I hope you all have an amazing whatever. Whenever you see this, I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and what you find, and I hope that if it comes to the time for you to do something challenging or difficult or to invest in you or to go that extra mile, that you do, because you're worth it to you. I hope you're worth it to you. And if it comes that point in time where you've done everything you can and you've exerted all the effort and it's not for you to do anymore and things still aren't progressing and moving and it's for you to move on, then I hope you do, because you're also worth it. And I hope you are worth it to you. Life ain't necessarily always one thing or another. Especially when we want things to change or move or do whatever. Some of the things we take with us, some of the things we leave behind, some of the things were a relic from an ancient past, foregone time. Some of the things are keys to moving things forward. It's almost like there are the things that's like predecessors of other things. And then there are the things that were sort of like phased out because something better came along. You know what I mean? It's like how we're not using cassettes anymore because CDs and discs and digital it's capable of holding a lot more and you can get a better audio quality and stuff like that. But at the same time, the cassette was a predecessor to where the technology is now. It was important. But it's also important for us to not sort of fixate on that point either. Because, like I said, use your own intuition and discernment, because life is too vast and things are a lot quicker and a lot faster than they seem. And it may be flashed so fast that it looked like it's stationary. Or it might actually be stationary. We saw both chariots, The Six of Pentacles again, but maybe the Six of Pentacles, there's such, and especially with the Nubis and the heart against the feather, there's such a deep level of what it is that we truly feel, what it is that we truly believe, that I don't know if we're necessarily always aware of. Or sometimes we try not to be. We try to make up for it by being extra. We overcompensate, basically. And in that overcompensation, while on the outside appearances may look whatever, it doesn't necessarily root. And again, that's what so much of it leads us to seeing those truths of ourselves for ourselves. And it's not always settling or easy. It is sometimes very unsettling and extremely difficult, and we'd rather look at anything and everything else. But until those things are addressed, there'd be that incompleteness would still be there. We'd still be wandering from one thing to another, looking for what is going to give us what we need to give ourselves, looking for what is going to do what we need to do for ourselves. And that's what's endless. It's not that we're doomed to suffer and humanity is never whatever. It's that sometimes it's really challenging and really difficult to look into the places that we need to affect the changes and do the things that matter, that affect everything else. You know what I mean? But if it's what you want, I hope you, again, everything that you need to do it, because I know it ain't always easy. I know that it seems that it's seldom easy until it becomes easier through that Eight of Pentacles. Once you do it often enough, even if it's challenging, even if it's difficult, like when you know that you can overcome it, it gives you a little bit more oomph. And when you have the support of friends, family, a community, and when you know that the divine is also there, like with you, guiding you, helping you work through it, is like reinforcing your strength and stuff like that, then all of those things, there are more hands on it that make it a little easier to lift. But if you get, it's like one of those things that is so heavy and unwieldy that even if there's 2 people or 5 people, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we had 5 people to help us move this thing up into the attic, but it was so like we had to move it and turn it. And even with that many people, it was still heavy. It don't necessarily, it's like it helps, it makes it easier, but it doesn't make it easy. Easier, but not easy. Less of a challenge, less difficult, but not necessarily without effort that needed to be extended or done, efforted. It's not without work.